Hiya kids, welcome to another half-assed tutorial. Today we're looking at sample loops on the ES1. So not individual hits, but loops, and how you can make those loops work together at different tempos. The first thing you've got to understand is a little bit about tempo and beats per minute. Beats per minute tells you how many individual hits there are in the course of 1 minute. So for example, 120 BPM, that's 120 beats in a minute. That's 2 beats a second. So 1 bar in 4/4 time is going to take 2 seconds, 2 beats every second. And 80 BPM in 4/4 time, 3 seconds. This is where you get the problem. So you found a really nice sample, nice drum loop, and it's 120 BPM, but your track is at 80 BPM. So your original beats per minute is 120. The track you want to write is at 80 beats. The problem that you've got is that you have silence hanging over the end. Let's see what that sounds like first of all. We'll have a look at the ES. Select a sample, and then we play that at a tempo. I think this is original is 107, and I'll put it on the first beat of the bar. You can hear that that loops round, fits perfectly. Say we wanted to change the tempo and bring it down to 80 BPM. We've got a big silence at the end. And this is the problem that we're trying to solve. So we need to make that beat fit a longer time. We need to stretch it out some way and retain the groove, and every kick, hi-hat and snare sounds in exactly the right place at that slower tempo, and it's going to sit on exactly the right step. The first way that you can do this is that you can change the pitch. If you pitch something down and you make it lower, you make it slower at the same time. Let me show you what I mean. So here we go. We've got this. We've got that back gap. I'm just going to use the pitch, slow the pitch down. Well, that's fairly close. That's not exactly perfect, but you see how that works a little bit better. But you change the nature of the sound. Everything sounds a little bit more flabby. You haven't got those crisp hi-hats in the same way anymore. You haven't got any of the carefully cueing that was done by the engineer who produced the sample in the first place. You've basically got something that sounds different to where you started. And there's another problem as well. Suppose that you decided that 80 BPM wasn't good enough, and actually you wanted to make it 95 BPM. The sample never quite hits the end, so you don't get it looping in exactly the right way. But don't worry folks, because the ES has a bit of an idea of how to solve that. And that's using a function called slicing. And what slicing does is look for peaks in volume and decides that each peak is going to be a hit, is going to be a sound, a snare or a kick drum or maybe a hi-hat, and it's going to chop the sample up in those spots. There is a problem, however, with this though, because even though it fits the beats better, you end up having gaps. So you haven't stretched it out, you have moments of silence. It's not the end of the world, because usually you don't even notice the gaps that are there, but it can sound a bit odd. Slicing works out where to cut samples by looking at the volume. It decides where the volume is highest, and it looks at that peak and says, right, there's something important going on here, there's a hit going on here, I'm going to cut here. And you can tell it to be sensitive to various levels, so you can tell it that you need it to do more cuts or less cuts. So for example here, 4 slices, so you would have 4 slices of cuts. It's looked and it's seen those big peaks and it's gone, each of those peaks I'm going to cut there. Here you got 12 slices. It only really works, slice, on percussive instruments or percussive patterns. So drum loops, arpeggiated lines, it's not really going to work very well on pads. I mean, you can see that if you've got a pad here, it will look and find where it peaks and goes over and chop there, and you'll miss the beginning of the envelope opening. And the other thing is that you have to make sure that the samples are placed on the right step. So when it slices, you can see that slice 1 is not just 1 step, it's kind of 2 steps. So the next slice is not going to go in at step 2, it's going to go in halfway between beat 1 and beat 2 on step 3. And then that's slightly long as well, so beat 2 is going to come next, you've not got anything in between. And then after beat 2 you've got another delay, and then you start to get it on every step, going on 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, until you get to beat 4, and then you've got another one with a longer decay on it. Clever thing about the ES is it works out exactly which steps all of these slices go onto, and it puts them on those steps for you. Let's have a little play with the slice function, and we're going to go into sample. Let's pick our sample. So we've got sample 44, which is the one that we're going to cut, and you press shift and go to time slice, and then the time slice button lights up, and then you press time slice button and it loops a sample and tells you the BPM that it thinks it should be. And here we've got it exactly spot on, it's 107 BPM. But say I thought that didn't sound right, I can then tweak it, make it slightly longer, but that's not right because it's kind of hurrying that last step. Now I can make it slower, and there you can hear it's got that gap that we don't necessarily want. So I think 107 is spot on. So the next thing that you do is you press time slice again because you're quite happy with that, and now we're deciding on our sensitivity, what level of peaks it's going to listen to. So here you can see it's found a hit at every step, every 16th step. So let's have a listen, just for the sake of argument, let's have a look and see what that sounds like. Okay, so I press time slice again, and there we go, that's 44.1. These little 2 dashes there, they tell you that that is a time slice sequence. Now we want to put that in our sequence, so I need to write that, save that to that point there. Then we'll go back to our pattern, press the pattern button, go to sample and go to time slice, pick 44, and then we need to put in all the steps. Now I'm not too happy with that. That sounds a little bit stuttered to me. Even at the original sample it doesn't sound very good. And that's what I meant about you having to be careful about where you slice things. I don't like that. So let's go back and slice it again and see if we can do better. Okay. I predict that we're going to slice it at about 5 and we're going to get 12 steps. Something might have told you I've practiced this one before. Here we go. we need to go back to our sample, and we're going to delete this 44 one. So I go Shift, delete sample, enter, and then 43, which is the original loop, I'm just going to go right and write it to 44 so I don't lose it, so I've got something to play with. And now we're going to go through the slice sequence again, so let's go. Time slice, yes please. 107, I'm happy with that. Let's go there. Sensitivity, not happy with that, so I'm changing it. If we go up to 5, so it's half sensitive, you can go up to 10. We're going up to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, which are the same 12 steps as we predicted it would cut up into. And I'm happy with that, so I'm going to press time slice, save that. That's all done. Then go back to our pattern. Take everything, all the hits off, and put them all in again. And if you look, you can see that it only lights up those steps which have got a time slice on them. And then if we play, you can hear that sounds a little bit more natural than the first time round. And now, one of the joys, we can speed it up and it sounds fairly natural, and we can slow it down. And it still sounds fairly natural. If you wanted to change the pitch, you can do that. So you can still play around with it. And then you can also do things so you can take steps out. And there you go. That's pretty much it for the time slicing. The pros are, with a time slice, you retain the pitch, you can change the tempo easily, you can drop out steps, and it only uses one track, so you get a full beat on one track. You could slice up the individual steps on computer and then load them in there, but then you'd have to have the kick drum on one pad, the snare on another pad, the hi-hat on another pad. You'd be using up 3, 4 pads depending upon how many different hits you had. With the time slice, you only use one pad. What you can't do though is you can't reorder. So you can't pick up your kick and put it in a different place. It's always going to be in exactly the same place. So that might be a reason why you would slice up on your computer. And if you slice it badly, as we saw, again, it can sound odd and it can not be quite what you want it to do. Right, if you made it this far and you're not a subscriber, I think you need to subscribe now. If you are a subscriber and you've made it this far, thanks, really nice to see you, thanks for coming back again. If you found it useful and you think other people will find it useful, please share it around and press like buttons. Absolutely magic. That's it. Hope you've enjoyed. Have fun, share and enjoy, and I'll see you later, kids. Bye.